Hi guys, my name is Nonima Tikela. Welcome to my YouTube channel. So today I want us to talk about Witness C, Madlanga Commission. Hey, hey, why? I thought Witness A and B were dropping shells, the bombshells there. This one, we were in Russia, between Russia. We were there between Russia and what is Putin's country? Ukraine. This one was fighting. We were there between Ukraine and Russia. Guys, the things that he told us. Anyway, who is Witness C? This is the summary that is publicly reported and the testimony of Witness C before the Madlanga Commission of Inquiry. And as with other testimonies, many details remain under protection or subject for verification. Okay. Witness C is described as a forensic investigator within the South African Police Services, who was part of a specialized team investigating major organized crime, syndicate infiltration, and high-level corruption. He testified that he was part of the operational team that conducted a raid on the premises of alleged criminal syndicate Vifiga Vusumuzi Ket Matlala in December 2024 as part of an investigation into the kidnapping of Jerry Boshoga. You know Boshoga, ne? Maybe we should do a video on that because I don't remember us in this channel talking about that. So, key claims from Witness C's testimony. Matlala told the investigative team that he had secured a large SEPS tender valued at about 1.2 billion over 3 years, and then claimed that a portion of each payment went to the Deputy National Commissioner for Lieutenant General Shadrack Sibiya. Again, his name again is popping up. Like everywhere I go, Sibiya's name pops out. Sibiya's name is everywhere, guys. Sibiya. Kunini ndikukhwaza, kunini ndikunqanda. Matlala further claimed he used a mid-level officer, a Sergeant Kosi, based at SEP's head office under Sibiya's command, as a kudit money transfer into Ngosi's account and subsequent cash collection intended for Sibiya. Witness C also said during the raid, he found indirect evidence that pointed to the kidnapping victim, Boshoga, a sheet tied to a window in one bedroom of Matlala's house, which matched the type of sheet seen in one of the ransom videos sent by the kidnappers. He testified that Matlala told them he had extensive links with senior police officers. Sibiya, the head of counterintelligence, Major General Feroz Khan, the head of organized crime, Major General Richard Shibiri, and the head of the KwaZulu-Natal Hawks, Major General Lisecha Senona. He also claimed to be related to Senona. Witness recounted that although the team did not locate Boshoga at Matlala's house, the raid and subsequent statements by Matlala triggered a deeper investigation into the relationship between criminal syndicates, police officials, and procurement at SEPS. Why this matters? The testimony by Witness C provides direct allegations that senior SEPS officials may have been financially benefiting from tenders linked to criminally connected business people, which, if true, indicates a serious breach of trust and the rule of law. It links multiple strands, organized crime, kidnapping, DRUG dealings, procurement corruption, and alleged internal collusion within policing structures. It supports and complements other testimonies, Witness A and B, around interference, protection of suspects, and internal sabotage of investigations. Ongoing issues. Everything is still at the stage of allegation. No public criminal conviction, as of the latest reports, has yet fully proven the claims made. Much of the detailed evidence, bank statements, internal memos, identity of Sergeant Gosi remains under investigation or sealed for reasons of security or ongoing prosecutions. Because of Witness's testimony involves active investigation, part of it may be heard in camera, closed to public, to protect integrity of the case. Whoa! Okonkuza, guys. okondikhuza betnana, because if we are going to have high-ranking police officials, how are we ever going to have people that are doing investigations properly? If these people are going to be found, if are going to be found doing these things, hayi na guys, ndiyaboyika mna babantu. No, 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 no. This is very scary. This is very scary, guys. This is very, very scary. We do not have a South African police department, if that is the case. We don't have a police department, if that is the case. If anything that is being said, Komatlanga Commission, that means we do not have a police department. Sanalam. We surely do not have the police department, because what is this? Why is this? What is this? I'm so scared. I'm even scared. I want to go through to today. I'm checking my notes, guys, so that you understand what was happening today with Witness C. I want you to understand exactly what Witness C shared. He shared a lot today. He shared a lot. I might repeat the things that I already noted down, but I want us to quickly, because I know my notes have a lot of things that one can, wow, you will be shocked with things that we hear from these things. Okay, here, let's start with, I think I'm going to go through the entire evidence for the day. It was not long. Witness C explains that special task force officers were part of the operation because the unity had specialized skills in hostage negotiation. At the time, police believed that Jerry Boshoga was being held captive by Ket Matlala. In the first room that they searched, witnesses says police found a Malawian national who said he worked at the premises. He said his boss was not there, which witnesses interpreted as meaning that Matlala was not home. Witnesses says police found a very distinctive torn white sheet tied to a window, which strongly resembled a white sheet seen in the ransom videos that were sent to Boshoga's family members. Witnesses says describing Matlala's home as a home would be an understatement because it was a mansion. As a result, he says he would have expected to see a proper curtain on the window, not a ripped up sheet. Does that mean Boshoga is known by Matlala where he is? Okay. The Malawian man said he did not know Boshoga and he did not know where Mr. Boshoga may be, Witnesses says he received a call that there were cottages on the property and there were people inside. He later found two men who told him that they worked for Matlala's security company, Witnesses says. He adds that he saw two pistols under pillow in the room and two rifles propped against the wall. The two men said the guns belonged to Matlala's security company. Guys. Ooh, does this? I'm still conflicted by what should we call, by Matlala might have been involved, or the high chances of him being involved there by Boshoga's disappearance. Oh, the way Usisi, the lawyer girl, was so shocked with the things that were being said. I heard her. In fact, when witness B was finishing up her testimony, she had an emotional moment where she said, even if she dies, it's okay. She will die knowing she has done the right thing because these people are looking for them. Okay, let's continue. Witnesses says the two men gave him the permits for the guns. He noticed that the signatures on the permits were digitally signed, which he interpreted as meaning that any gun details could have been entered on the form. This is not allowed under law. He says there was also no safe in the room for the guns, which he said was in contravention of the Firearms Control Act. And then witnesses says two men gave him the permits. Okay, we dealt with that. Witnesses says he seized the rifles and pistols. Unfortunately, he says he could not find Boshoga. And then witnesses says there were a lot of vehicles on Matlala's premises. While he was atomizing these cars, he encountered a man driving a white Toyota Corolla who said he was Matlala's driver, who said Matlala had asked him to pick him up. He was subsequently called to the main bedroom in the house where he found Matlala and his wife. The driver said he had received a call from Matlala requesting that he be picked up at the exact time that witness C and his colleagues were leaving the STF on their way to Matlala's house. Witness C says. So someone tipped him. Witnesses says Matlala asked that his wife be excused from the room and she was allowed to go outside. He then conducted a search in the bedroom and Matlala asked Matlala whether he had any. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off. Hello? Okay. All right. Sure. Witnesses says Matlala asked that his wife be excused from the room and she was allowed to go outside. He then conducted a search in the bedroom and asked Matlala whether he had any weapon. Matlala then showed him a pistol on a pedestal. Witnesses says Matlala produced a firearm license for the gun, but Matlala was unable to point out where his gun safe was. Witnesses says again he seized that gun and told Matlala it will be sent for ballistic testing. Witnesses says he says police seized 2 rifles and 3 pistols at Matlala's home. Witness C says he asked Matlala for his cell phone. He says Matlala consented to his phone being searched. Matlala told them that he knew the reason why the police were at his house and said he knew that they were looking for a kidnapped mother and her child. Matlala said he knew Jerry Boshoga and they had been friends since 2012 and had been engaged in criminal activities together. Matlala said he did not know where Boshoga was and added that the businessman's family had asked him to help them find him. Matlala said Boshoga owed people money and borrowed 5 million from him for machine he needed to process drugs. According to Matlala, Boshoga also told him that he had had a fallout with certain of his drug associates. Witnesses says this interview with Matlala was recorded. Witness C says Matlala also told police that he was the beneficiary of a 1.2 billion tender from the police. He says the tenderpreneur also He says the tenderpreneur also started name dropping the names of senior police officials, which witness C regarded as an attempt to intimidate the police who were interviewing him. Matlala said he had close connections to Deputy National Police Commissioner Shadrack Sibiya, organized crime head Richard Shibiri, and SAPS intelligence boss Feroz Khan. He produced personal cell phone numbers for each of these men. Witness C said. Matlala said Sibiya and KZN Hawks Major General Lesetja Senona, who he said he was related to, had assisted him in securing the SEPS tender for 1.2 billion for 3 years. He said Crime Intelligence Officer Khan would regularly use his main penthouse, but did not know why. Matlala said he knew that police were coming to his house that day. Witnesses said and showed them his call record with Sergeant F. Ingosi, who worked in Sibiya's office at Detective Services. He said he had been tipped off about the police coming to his home. Matlala also claimed to be in constant communication with then Police Minister Senzo Mchunu, who he said he was meeting that night. Matlala said this meeting was arranged through a third person who he did not name. Matlala showed them a screenshot of an Absa bank account details of Nkosi, who he claimed was a connection between him and Sibiya. In most cases, he will give Sergeant Nkosi money transfers for his personal use, and for the general, he would summon Sergeant Nkosi to come and collect the packages for General Sibiya. They were money packages, he said. Witnesses told the Madlanga Commission the third party who arranged the meeting between Mchunu and Matlala was Brown Mufotsi. Witness C says Matlala did not explain how Sibiya and Senona had assisted him in getting the police tender. He says that Matlala told them that after he was paid by the police, he would give money to Sibiya. Witness did not find Boshoga at Matlala's home. Boshoga's location remains unknown. While Matlala's WhatsApp interactions with Mokgotsi revealed that the Northwest businessman repeatedly promised to arrange meetings with Mchunu and claimed to be securing money from Matlala for the minister's political ambitions, there was no recorded direct contact between Matlala and Mchunu. The communication between Matlala and Mokgotsi also reveals that he became increasingly suspicious of Mokgotsi's claims, particularly after Mchunu ordered an investigation into his company's policy, into his company's police health services tender. Witness C is tracking how guns and cell phones seized from Matlala and his wife were booked into evidence after the 6th December operation at their home. On the 8th of December 2024, Witness says he handed the cell phones over for analysis and received them back after 3 days. 3 days later, without any downloading have been done. Madlanga sought clarification on what happened. Witnesses said the cell phones were not downloadable. Kanjani ba asikho downloadable. Witnesses suspects that someone assisted Matlala to make sure that his cell phone could not be downloaded. As a result, the phones were returned to Matlala on 12 December 2024, when he was later arrested for the attempted murder of his ex-girlfriend. Tebogo Tobejane on 15 May, Matlala told arresting officer that he had burnt the cell phone that had been returned to him because he did not trust the police and believed they may have put listening devices on the phones. Witness said this was the first time in his career that he had encountered a phone that could not be downloaded. Yes, yes. While Matlala had boasted about having a 1.2 billion tender, witnesses said subsequent investigation confirmed that the actual he actually had a 326 million police health services tender. He says it was clear to investigators that Matlala did have connections with the police. Witness C believes that Matlala was tipped off that his team were coming to his home and had been attempting to leave the property when police arrived there. Witness C then recounted how on the same day that Matlala's home was searched for Boshoga, businessman Katifo Molefe was arrested for murder of engineer Ahmad Swart. Police were also looking for Molefe's nephew, Lucky, but were unable to arrest him. Lucky Molefe remains on the run. Njani kaloku sana, committing crimes and then decide about uzobaleka. Jwang. Njani. Swart was shot 23 times on 17 April 2024 in what police believe was a case of mistaken identity. The father of two brutal murder would eventually lead Witness B, her fellow investigators, to Matlala and a web of other hits. During her evidence Wednesday, Witness B explained how whistleblowing report from QTech had resulted in businessman Katiso Molefe's nephew, Lucky, being asked to account for his role in the granting of an alleged unlawful tender that had resulted in QTech's 3.20 springs being sold to Transnet for 152. As Lucky Molefe came under increasing pressure for that tender, Witness B believes Swart's killers wrongly identified him as the whistleblower who could potentially cost the Transnet employee his job and its access to lucrative tenders. According to Witness B, Swart was collateral damage in Lucky Molefe's desperation to avoid accountability. She said evidence revealed that Katiso Molefe had engaged in planning the hit on Swart with Johannesburg detective Michael Puletau, who he communicated with and met in the days before the murder. Within hours of Swart's 17 April 2024 killing, CCTV footage and witness evidence resulted in Tau, Musekekana, and Tieho Floyd Mabusela being arrested for that murder. Kekana and Mabusela would later be charged with the attempted hit on Tebu Khotobejane alongside Matlala. Whoa! Guys, these people. Following Katiso Molefe's arrest for Swart's murder on 6 December 2024, witnesses says he received information Katiso had a cell phone in his cell at the Kronpant prison where he was being held. No cell phone was found in his cell, he says, but Molefe was in possession of the affidavits used to obtain the warrant for his arrest from Witness B. Molefe said he had obtained this affidavit from his legal representative. Witnesses says lawyers would not normally receive such an affidavit at this stage of his prosecution. Guys, we do not have police in this country. Police found a set of new polo track suits in Molefe's cell. Molefe then told them that acting Sedibeng District Commissioner Brigadier Mbangwa had brought him this tracksuit. Witnesses said. He adds that he found this revelation worrying, particularly given the serious charges that Molefe was facing. Then a brigadier comes to visit him. Jani. Subsequent investigation revealed that Nkwashu and Molefe's brother-in-law have visited Molefe after hours on December 9. The brother-in-law told police that Katiso Molefe had been arrested at the airport and was not given an opportunity to get clothes and toiletries. While the pair had brought food for Molefe, this food could not be given to him. Witness C confirms that the license plates on Nkwashu's vehicles were removed when he visited the prison. Witness C says the Correctional Services Assistant Director deposed to an affidavit where he detailed how Nkwashu had arrived at prison and said he was bringing food and clothes for Katiso Molefe. He said he could not give Katiso Molefe the food that Nkwashu had brought with him, but was able to give Molefe the brand new tracksuit and t-shirts that Nkwashu had brought for Molefe. Witnesses says a second prison official also provided an affidavit about Nkwashu's prison visit. I was you know what? My head is spinning because every time I read this evidence, I realize that we do not have a police force if things are like this. There is this 10% that is corrupt that clouds everything, Kwaseps. And it's high profile individuals. That's how sad it is. Because tell me why Nkwashu Ebrikatia is going to visit Molefe when he's arrested. Tell me why is Ket going to boast about Shedrack Sibia, Shabir, and Khan? Why is he going to boast? Unless they are sleeping in the same bed, if you understand what I mean. Not like being gay. No, like they are together in these things that they do. Yo, guys, anyway, what are your thoughts when it comes to this? Because now my brain is like spinning right now. I don't know, man. This is too much. Let's talk a comment section about this. I want to hear your views. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.